Kia ora, welcome to Under the Checkered Flag, MotoGP edition. I'm your host Kate, and we're just going to jump right in.
It is PozzA and Kate here this week. Kelly is off doing scout things, and I'm sure she's having a great time. But Poz and I will give you the news and then jump into our predictions for the Circuit of the Americas, because that's where we are this week. A little bit of housekeeping on COTA absences. So Miguel Oliveira has been ruled out, and he will be replaced by Augusto Fernandez. Jorge Martin, as mentioned last week, is still out, and he will be replaced by Lorenzo Savadori. In Moto2, Sergio Garcia has also been ruled out of racing, which I found quite interesting because he did travel to Argentina, so whatever they've discovered obviously isn't a good thing. And Noah Detweiler is also out of Moto3, so quite a few riders down and injured. Not a great start to the season, but yeah, this is motorcycle racing, and unfortunately, it is what it is. And we hope all of them have a speedy recovery. This news brings me to what will be the subject of a meeting in the MotoGP paddock on Thursday. Aprilia has formally proposed an amendment to the rules that would allow a one-day private test for any rider who has missed multiple races due to injury. It's reportedly being blocked by Ducati. All other manufacturers are backing for this rule change, and personally, I absolutely have to agree with them. Jorge Martin hasn't spent a full day on that Aprilia yet, and he'll be coming back to the fourth race of the season, hopefully. So he's definitely on the back foot, but it would also be excellent at helping returning riders know if they're back in shape. And in this particular case, it would help Martin determine if his wrist is recovered enough to race in Qatar and if he's comfortable enough on that bike or if he needs a little bit more time off. What are your thoughts on it, Poz?
Yeah, when I saw the news, I think it was Simon Patterson that I saw it from, and I'm pretty sure he said something that I agree with, which is the fact that if, like, the majority of the manufacturers agree on it, one of them shouldn't be able to just come out and say, no, we don't agree with it and get it all blocked, like Ducati have done. But I'm sure that happens with a few other different things. It also doesn't really surprise me that Ducati are trying to block it, just because in the last few years they've had riders that would have benefited from something like this. I still don't think that's really a good reason to fully block it. And I did say in one of the different chats that we're in that I feel like they'll just try and block it now so Jorge doesn't get it, and then at the end of the season they'll sort of change their stance on it and say like, oh no, we agree now. And I saw an article saying that that is almost exactly what they're doing, which really doesn't shock me. But yeah, I still think 4 of the 5 of them agree on it. That should be good enough grounds to get it cleared.
I definitely have to agree in regards to needing unanimous support for a rule change, especially when it relates to rider safety, which I definitely think this does. And that's super disappointing to hear that they're most likely just blocking it for Martin, because at this point, surely Jorge is not a threat to the championship. He'll be realistically, I was going to say 75 points behind, but there's also sprint races. So he'll be a lot of points behind Marc Marquez, because I'm fairly confident on his ability to do well this weekend, shall we say. Which brings me to a comment that we got last week from Andrew. So he noted last week that with Alex Marquez and Marc Marquez doing so well at the start of the season and openly sharing data and information because they live together they're around each other constantly, that them doing so well and sharing this information could mess with Pecco's head a little. Now, I, for one, personally think Marc plays a little less mind games than people give him credit for, but I do think he plays them unintentionally as well. And I for sure think that the first 2 rounds of the season will have dramatically hit Pecco's confidence, especially when we see, I guess, the engineers listening to Marc before Pecco in that Ducati garage. I think that's going to have had quite an impact as well. But what about you?
Yeah, I do actually kind of agree on your point that most of his mind games aren't like really intentional. They're just kind of. I almost feel like his biggest mind game is just the fact that he is Marc Marquez and he is so like quick and hard to beat. So yeah, I do agree with that point. Uh
I like it when we're in agreement because it makes things a lot easier. So that's all the news we've got, thankfully. It's been quite quiet, and silly season news won't start until, I don't know, maybe the Italian GP. I feel like it always starts around Mugello. So we're going to jump on to our predictions. Now, Kelly isn't here, but we will drop hers in the comment section below as soon as she gives us them. And also, we would love to see yours in the comments down below, your predictions. I'll start us off with Moto 3. So, for my reserve, I've gone for my boy, Stefano Neppa. I know COTA's not his best track, but I feel like I really need to back him quite a bit. In P3, I've gone for Yamanaka. In P2, I've gone for Munoz, hoping he can keep calm and a cool head after, you know, last week where he had to start from pit lane. And in P1, I've gone for Angel Piqueras just because he is decent at COTA and last week was very good.
yeah, I feel like I've played mine quite safe. Just in regards like who's been good recently. But in P3, I've gone for Adrian Fernandez because that kind of seems to be where he finishes around about in most races nowadays, honestly. P2, I've gone Angel Piqueras just because last race he obviously won, was pretty strong, and he took his first podium in Moto3 at this track last year. And in P1, I've gone for Jose Antonio Rueda, honestly just purely because he was on the front row here last year before he got the appendicitis hindrance, and I think he would have done pretty well in the race last year. So the fact that he's on good form as well this year, I think he'll be a contender for sure. And as my reserve, I've gone for Alvaro Carpe just because he's been good at adapting to two tracks he's never been at in the last two races. So I feel like he can keep that going for Moto 3.
I did actually forget that Carpe existed, but that's what I get for going first with my predictions. For Moto 2, I have put Aaron Canet in my reserve spot, and then I have gone with Alonso Lopez, who we haven't seen much of this season, but I'm hopeful, I suppose, that he'll be back fighting at the front and looking strong. For P2, I have gone for Joe Roberts. I just think that he is going to get the vibes from a home race that he always seems to get. And in P1, I'm gone for Manu Gonzalez.
Yeah, I was looking at the results from last year, and I actually found Moto 2 one of the hardest to predict just because I feel like everyone that's sort of gone well there in the past has either moved on from the class or is out injured. But in P3, I've gone for Celestino Vietti. He's looked like a podium contender. He has been a podium contender in the first two races, and I believe did pretty well here in 2022, so I think he can do another good job. P2, shockingly, I've gone for Aaron Canet, just because he's always sort of in and around the fight at the front, and more often than not seems to finish in second in that fight. And P1, I've gone for Manu Gonzalez as well. Just looked really strong so far this year. And as my reserve, I've gone his teammate Senna Agis, just because I kind of want an Australian to do well this week. Moving on to the MotoGP Sprint, I've gone for Pekka Bagnaia in P3, and my P1 and P2 won't shock anyone because it's been the same way it has been all this year. I've gone for Alex Marquez in second and Marc Marquez to win. Obviously, it's one of his best tracks, and he hasn't won a race here in a while, so he'll be wanting to get that one crossed off the list. And as my reserve, I've gone for Franco Morbidelli.
Yeah, I think Mark's definitely going to want to reclaim the title of King of COTA, and that's going to be quite a driving force. I have gone quite similar for the sprint. As my reserve, though, I have gone for Pecco Bagnaia. In P3, I've gone for Pedro Acosta. I know it might be a little bit early to start putting him back on the podium now that the KTM bike is back in development after the freeze over the break, but he was really strong here last year, and I'm just hoping that we see a KTM up there rather than the Ducati domination we've been seeing. P2, I have gone the same. Alex Marquez, and P1, I have gone for Marc Marquez. Now, for the Sunday race, I have put Pedro Acosta as my reserve, Pecco Bagnaia in P3, Marco Bezzecchi in P2, just because the Aprilia is quite strong here, and I'm quite disappointed that Jorge is not racing because I think he could have actually battled quite well against Mark here. But I also think that Mark is going to reclaim his title as the King of COTA, so I have put him in P1.
I've honestly gone with the exact same combination for the sprint as I did the main race. So I've got Bagnaia P3, Alex Marquez second, Mark to win, and Morbidelli is my reserve.
Well, that makes it nice and easy for me to copy and paste onto the spreadsheet. Before we wrap up today, I will give you a very quick standings update of where we're all at in the championship. So I am including Andrew, who comments his below because, well, you'll see. So I'm in fourth place with 55 points. Poz is in third place with 56.5 points. Kelly is in second place with 61.5 points. And Andrew is right at the top with 100.5 points. So we have some serious catching up to do and need to up our game quite dramatically. A short and sweet episode for us this week with Kelly being away and I'm just getting over COVID. As always, we appreciate you so much for listening. We'll be back after COTA to discuss all of the racing. Have a wonderful week.